Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. I'm Isa, and today we wanted to share 10 things with you about living with dissociative amnesia. This is a very emotional and sensitive topic for us to talk about, so we might cry, I might cry. I cried earlier today while preparing for this. I cried last time I recorded this video. But it ended up to be a complete mess, so I wanted to try to record it, so keep that in mind. You don't have to watch this if that's not for you. Also, we do not speak for anyone else with dissociative identity disorder, with other mental health conditions, or anyone else on this planet. We speak for us, from our experience, from what we know, and from what we live with. So let's get started. Firstly, we wanted to describe or tell you what dissociative amnesia actually is. And dissociative amnesia is actually a condition that's part of dissociative disorders. The main symptom of dissociative amnesia is memory loss that's more severe than normal forgetfulness that most people experience in their life, in their day-to-day life, as well as this memory loss. Amnesia cannot be explained by any medical condition. One may not be able to recall certain information about themselves, events, or people in their life, especially if they are related to a traumatic time. Now, if you put this in context to DID, this disorder, amnesia, is actually a big part of how DID works and how it is developed. Now, someone with dissociative identity disorder has multiple personalities, multiple alters, and alters and personalities are just a term to describe, for example, two separate parts of consciousness. So there's one, there's the other. They are separated by a wall. This wall is referred to, or it can be referred to, as an amnesic wall, where the word amnesia is already part of. Why is that so? This wall, for example, keeps alters from having the access to the same memory. This wall, for example, is the reason why some alters hold trauma and some don't. Or why some alters are able to remember some trauma and some alters don't. When this disorder is developed, it is under very traumatic conditions that makes one feel like they cannot survive a situation. And due to that, the brain develops this survival mechanism that separates this consciousness that experienced the event from another one with this wall, so that the other part is able to survive and keep on living without the trauma. Of course, other alters might experience other trauma and hold other trauma, but they might not hold this trauma. Or not every alter is holding this trauma. While writing notes, we've noticed that there are two big things that cause amnesia, which one is dissociation and the other one is alters. Dissociation is not just something someone with dissociative identity disorder experiences. Dissociation can go along with many other mental health conditions, for example, other trauma-based disorders, but it can also go along with, for example, borderline personality disorder. Dissociation, why can dissociation cause amnesia? Dissociation shortly causes a disconnection between a person's sensory experience, their sense of self, thoughts, and their surroundings, which mainly describes that 4 parts of the areas in your brain that usually work together very smoothly aren't working together anymore in the way they are supposed to. So your consciousness, identity, self-awareness and awareness of surroundings, and memory aren't working together in the way they're supposed to. And that's causing the brain to not really be able to process information. So there's a lot of input, but this input doesn't really get in. There's just no real way of the brain to process the information. And when there's no real way to process the information, there's not a lot of information that in the end stays and keeps being there. So if I would front for a whole day, for example, which doesn't really happen because we switch a lot, if I'm dissociated the whole day on a very, very high scale, I would not be able to remember anything from the day because the brain wasn't really processing what was going on. So there isn't a lot of information left from the day that's kept. So that can cause amnesia. The other thing that can cause amnesia is having other alters fronting, which is definitely part of dissociative identity disorder. Part of that is having different alters as well as them switching. So due to these amnesic walls that also separate the trauma, etc., that separate the alters and blah blah blah, it already tells you that there is separation between the way memory is kept. And that also impacts the daily life in the way that when Drew, for example, fronts, I don't know what happened in that time. So I could come back and I don't know what was going on. This whole situation, if an alter is fronting, another alter switches out, and the other one has no recollection of what has happened while the other alter was out, is called a blackout. You might have heard of the term, you probably have, and blackout. A term that is not as commonly heard of is a grey out. It is something that we've learned later after our diagnosis and after learning about ourselves, about other systems, about this disorder in general. We learned about the term grey out. Grey out is, instead of a blackout, it is not the whole that you miss everything from while you woke on. Instead of having no memory of what has been going on, you might remember or have a vague memory of where you were, with who you were, but you might not remember what you've done or what you've talked about or with why you were there. Maybe you remember what you have done, but you don't really know any detail, etc. But that is called a grey out. It's something that we sometimes experience. Usually there are blackouts for us, but there are also times where we experience a grey out. And it's good that we've learned about that, because sometimes the few times that I did experience that, it made me very unsure of if I am kind of functioning okay, or if that's normal, or if I'm just a bit crazy. But grey outs exist. Okay, now to the more emotional part. Amazing. I'm already sorry. when we talk about dissociative amnesia and amnesia in context with also dissociative identity disorder, there's something that we are thankful for. Something that is theoretically maybe a good thing about having this kind of amnesia is that time when, or what caused us to have dissociative identity disorder, that not everybody holds that trauma, that not everybody remembers what we've gone through. This amnesia at that time was necessary for us to be able to survive, for us to be able to exist. And even though there are also many negative things about this, I'm also glad about having my alters because they help me. And I'm thankful that they make me be able to be here today. I'm thankful that I am able to still be here. I'm sorry. But this, of course, also deals with negative things. Having and experiencing amnesia, whether it's due to other alters fronting or due to dissociation, you're losing parts of your life. There can be times, or there are times where you don't remember like whole years or months. And even though, okay, I'm glad I don't hold maybe a certain trauma, but I'm also very sad and I grieve the times where we had good times. It is very hurtful sometimes to, for example, hear others talk about, oh, do you remember when we played this and this together and you were so happy then, and or were there and there, and you just don't. You don't remember playing on the beach and looking for like shells and stuff. Like, you don't remember that. Of course, that's a very stupid example for you maybe, but that's, I don't know. Or when you're dissociated and or you, I'm sorry. All of this can make you just feel like you lose yourself, like you lose who you are, because you are so in this kind of what actually happened, who am I? Who am I? Where am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? And can be very hurtful, can be confusing, and can be very upsetting, stressful, can make you feel very anxious. I'm so sorry. Which also brings me to, I think the last part that I try to talk about now is, personally for us, this amnesia plays a big part in our life, in the way we are able to function day to day. I'm sorry. I think I'm just gonna end it here. I don't think I can speak a lot more, but I hope you learned something about this. It can be very debilitating, and yeah.